it's not just a traditional festival in that, we're sort of pitching film buffs. This is a festival about movement building. To give this program to activists and organizers, to get people into physical or virtual spaces together, to talk about how to collaborate.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
And for more than 11 years, the show has celebrated underrepresented voices in pop culture and beyond.
But not in the snore kind of way, which is why our listeners and followers have graciously voted us Best of the Bay, Best Podcast on 48 Hills for 3 years in a row. Three-peat, bitches.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram and check out our website, Bitch Talk Podcast, and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're begging you to judge us. When does that ever happen? Oh, you're not going to say anything?
Oh, what'd I say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note, on with the show. Clink.
Hey, Bitch Talkers. We are talking about basically an emergency film festival, I would say, that's going to be taking place in certain parts of the country, and it's called Resistance of Vision. And we're speaking with Anna Fetter, the Director of Programming. Welcome to Bitch Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Anna, can you please tell our audience what this film festival is?
Yeah, so it is going to be a traveling festival of social justice cinema. For this first year, we've announced 4 programs. There's going to be a 5th coming soon. But the 4 programs we're launching so far are This is an Emergency, which is on climate justice, environmental justice. Fight the Power, which is racial justice. Our Bodies, Our Choice, which is gender and reproductive justice. And then there is a housing and labor justice. Which side are you on? And so we're showing selections in 4 in-person screenings. We wanted to get screenings in the different regions. So there's going to be one May 1st in Wichita, Kansas. Also on May 1st, Birmingham, Alabama with Sidewalk. And May 3rd at the Brattle in Cambridge. And then May 31st, it's going to be in San Francisco at the Roxy as part of SF Doc Fest.
This is so exciting. And San Francisco, it's an honor to have your debut in San Francisco as one of the founding cities. How did you choose the first 4 that you would go to?
So my collaborator, Jeff Ross, runs SFND, also Doc Fest. There's an environmental film festival, a shorts film festival that are all under the SFND umbrella. So that was an obvious choice. I'm based in Providence in Boston and have collaborated with the folks at the Brattle a lot. So that was another obvious choice. And then Jeff and I are both close with Leela Meadow-Connors, who runs Mama Film in Wichita. So that was going to be our sort of Midwest venue. And then we were looking around for a venue in the South, and everyone recommended Sidewalk. So we're working with Jessica at Sidewalk to host as well. So yeah, that's how we sort of chose. We wanted to get all the 4 regions and, went with the places where we knew folks.
When you were thinking about this festival, when the thought process started, was this going to be a thing, even if the person that's in the presidency right now, was this going to be a thing whether or not he was in the seat or not?
Yeah, I can say for myself that I was interested in doing something like this. I had thoughts about doing a new festival. And Jeff Ross approached me, and I know for him, the impetus was really the election, that he thought, okay, I have to do something. So for me, the climate, I feel like, it's ripe for something like this, no matter who is in office. There's a sort of deterioration of the public discourse, let's say. And so, yeah, so I knew that I wanted to do something like this. And it was really the spark was Jeff approaching me with this particular idea that he was inspired by Wild and Scenic and their traveling festival, and also the Human Rights Watch Festival,
Mm.
concluding after, 30 something years, and being um, a real beacon for this kind of cinema.
Mm. Yeah, so often on Bitch Talk, we'll say everything is political, whether you like it or not. Everything you do is making a statement for or against something. After following all these film festivals, it's really exciting to see how much politics and activism is being included in everyday narratives. It doesn't just have to be a documentary anymore in order for it to make a statement. So I'm curious, as director of programming, which is already a ridiculously difficult job, what are the
Mhm.
parameters for you? What are the checklists in order to place this film above the rest?
Good question. So yeah, these are actually all documentaries. I had left the door open for narrative, and I certainly will leave a door open for narrative in future iterations of the festival. But within that, we have, animation, and then we have sort of more standard observational documentaries, interview documentaries. But for me, it was important to show folks in the streets, fighting for rights that didn't involve electoral politics. That became clear to me really early on, that I was not interested in showing people knocking on doors and writing petitions and, trying to get people elected. That's not my idea of resistance, my personal idea of resistance. I'm not an electoralist. I'm really about building solidarity with individuals and community organizations. So that was really important to me, that the films that I showed were showing a different kind of path to sort of building resistance. So yeah, it was for me trying to find films that touched on as many different dimensions of these issues as I could find. So like, for example, the racial justice, we have a film by a Muslim filmmaker talking about an experience that she had with racism in the UK. And I certainly in the future, I want to have a lot more international cinema than I do. I feel like at this point, maybe 20% international cinema in the program. But it was all sort of what was submitted, and then, what we did, what we found in terms of when I was researching what films were out there and what films were current.
Like I said at the top of this interview, seems like an emergency film festival. And the seems short. I'm sure it felt very short, but can you walk us through and walk the audience through like what that looks like in terms of, okay, we want to do this film festival. It's very timely to what is happening in the world, and then actually putting it out into the world and actively booking it as you're releasing all of these festivals.
Yeah, I mean, everything's happening all at once. Normally it'd be like a year, right, to plan a festival and to get it out there. And so I think Jeff approached me in maybe mid to late November, and then we opened up the call for entries in January. And so yeah, I mean, we're sort of building it as we go along. And so, that's why we reached out to the folks that we already knew, that we could collaborate with, and already, knew this was something that their audiences would be interested in. So, for right now, we're sort of doing things, uh, through the channels we already have, just to get it going. And so, yeah, it's an interesting idea. It was an interesting
Mhm.
pitch to filmmakers. I mean, I'd say, maybe close to half of the films were actually films that were submitted to the festival, and then others were ones that I watched that were submitted to DocFest, SF Indie. So we leaned on, or I, for programming, was leaning on films that were sort of already submitting to other festivals that are in this sort of ecosystem of Jeff's festivals, and then had to approach filmmakers. And it was a lot of like having to explain the whole idea behind this. And it's not just a traditional festival in that, we're sort of pitching film buffs, come to see this really beautiful film and talk about filmmaking. This is a festival about movement building.
Mm,
What I'm trying to do is to give this program to activists and organizers to get people into physical or virtual spaces together to talk about how to collaborate. So, for example, the housing and labor justice program, I'm going to be pitching, national unions and then folks who work around issues of housing, and get those people into spaces together to talk about ways that they can collaborate on issues together. And so that was really the idea behind it. That was at least the way that I came to the festival, thinking about it is, how do we give this sort of prepackaged event, right? So the film and we're going to create a screening guide for folks. So for people who don't traditionally put on film screening events, so that they have all the tools they need to put on this event and to get people together. And then there's also a virtual platform for folks who are having a hard time finding a space to host the festival, or there's security concerns, right? If they're
mm.
showing this program, the gender and reproductive justice program, I'm sure there are places where it'd be hard to put on a physical screening. So there's another opportunity for people to get folks together in these virtual spaces to build solidarity and to movement build together.
Well, it's such an exciting idea, especially for places that aren't as lucky as we are in San Francisco to have all these film festivals and access to all of these stories and ideas. And that was what I was going to ask is, will there be a way for people in all these different cities to connect over a certain film or over a certain social justice platform? Like, hey, we love the labor union. What are y'all doing over there? How can we collaborate across the country and sort of create a network in that way?
I mean, that's the hope. I mean, the hope is to get people connected in whatever way that we can through this initiative.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, right now it's just, this program, people can come into a physical space, see the films. The panel conversation that I'm hosting in San Francisco and in Boston is going to be activists and organizers. I mean, there's an opportunity for hosts to do really whatever they want with the program. I mean, they could bring in filmmakers either to the physical space or virtually, or this could be just an opportunity to get activists and organizers together. So, like the Brattle screening, I already have a number of area film festivals that are collaborating, like Cinefest Latino, Wicked Queer, Boston Asian American Film Festival. But then I'm also getting a lot of organizations that are working on these issues locally, like Sunrise, like Extinction Rebellion, Boston Common Coalition for the Homeless, Warm Up Boston,
Mm.
um, and getting them all sort of together and talking to each other. But yeah, it'd be great to do it on a much larger scale, get people in different parts of the country collaborating with each other. So yeah, any way that this develops, whatever way it can serve this purpose of getting people organizing together, I'm up for.
Start that spreadsheet.
Yeah,
Mhm. Also, you're a bit of a masochist, Anna. I mean, very
yeah.
ambitious, and I so appreciate your work, but I can't imagine the wheels that are spinning with this. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's just an all, sort of extension of what I've been doing. I ran a social justice focused program at Emerson College, a free public film series. And then I've also been advising filmmakers on how to get their films sort of non-traditional screenings, at college campuses and libraries and community centers. So yeah, this is sort of a natural extension of what I'm most enthusiastic about in terms of community building and cinema.
Yeah. Thank you. We've been talking about that a lot more recently with filmmakers, just in terms of, I think the industry feels really hard right now. Not that I think it does, I know it does, but there are different ways to get your film seen or your project seen out there, and this is one of them. Last question.
Yeah.
What's Where else do you want this to go? Is there a city that you're like, it really needs to be, this festival needs to be there? Or you're just like, wherever it can be seen, let's do it. Like
Now,
DC, is it going to be in DC?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, I would love for it to be in DC, and I would love for it to be in places where there aren't, there isn't this access, where there aren't tons of cinemas. I think of a place like Seattle, and there's so many amazing cinemas. There's an amazing film festival there, Seattle International. But, outside of those areas, 2, 3 hours outside where, it might be harder to access some of these films, and to get, folks in spaces together. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I want it to be in all the cities, but I want it to also be in the places where, it's harder to see films like this. I mean, I'm in Providence, Rhode Island, which is the capital city. There is one art house screen in the city, two in the whole state, and we really don't have a film festival. So it's interesting,
Hmm.
hour from Boston, but still in a way a bit of a cinema desert. So yeah, so wherever, folks aren't getting access to films like this and opportunities to sort of get into spaces in this way.
Real last question, where can people find screenings near them?
You look up, we're Resistance of Vision on Instagram. And if you go to that, there's links to everything. There's links to the screenings that are already set up in these 4 locations. And then there's our Eventive Watch page, and folks can find out about there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for doing this really important work. We're excited for the Roxy screening. We're in San Francisco. Thank you, Anna Fetter. Everyone look for Resistance of Vision Film Fest out there.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.